Everyone should be here, Mayor.
Okay, good enough. Thanks very much. We're going to continue on with our work. And I believe we have, is Sarah Marler here for an interview?
Yes.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Sarah has applied for the Parks and Recreation Commission. And Sarah, so what we'd like you to do is tell us why you've applied to this commission, what you think you'll bring to the table.
It's really hard to resist telling you that Amy Poehler just made it look so fun. I'm sure you've heard that joke a million times. No, my wife and I moved here over the summer. I in particular have been looking to get more involved in the community. A good friend of mine, I don't know if you know her or not, her name's Marin Mellum, has been pretty involved since she moved into Webster Groves. And so I started looking at different committees, seeing which things piqued my interest. Frankly, we moved here with our kids because we wanted to be in an inclusive area. We wanted to be in sort of that small town feel, which I had before from working in the Webster area for a long time. As far as this committee specifically, I think that it's a way to give back. That's something that's really important to me. The motto of my law firm, the motto of the nonprofit I've started is helping good people through hard times. And it kind of just flows into modeling for my kids how we start to really give back into our own community, be active in our own community. And I think one of the big reasons we moved here was just the connection. We lived in Afton before we moved over here, but we still came over here a lot, specifically for all of the different parks. And, even though we didn't know anyone, oftentimes the kids would come over and we'd end up at different parks and they'd meet people, and it would be, just very welcoming and very open. And we really enjoyed our time here. And so you guys had several different boards that were open and had committees available. And this was one of them that I thought would be interesting.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have a question for Sarah? Thank you very much for applying, Sarah. And we have a few candidates for a position. If you're appointed, we'll let you know. If not, we'll keep you there for all these other boards that you'd like to be a part of. So hang in there.
You guys made this so easy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So much. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody care to review the regular agenda? If not, then we're going to go on to the meeting issues and updates. And we'll just do this in alphabetical order. Karen Alexander, anything to report?
No, I have nothing to report.
Okay, Laura Arnold.
Yes, the Sustainability Commission met yesterday. They're putting together a proposal that they worked with Todd to develop, a subcommittee did, on some bike lane proposals and some shared driving, biking. There's a word for that I don't know. So we should see that soon. And they just started a more general discussion on energy use, thinking both from homeowners as well as city energy use. And I think that'll be an ongoing conversation for a while. I'm not sure what specifically is going to come of that yet. As some of you are, certainly the mayor and I were working with the BDC working group to try and increase business visibility as well as coordination across the different business districts. I think I have some recommendations that hopefully will come out of the BDC in their meeting next week. So there's that. And then we all got a letter from Colleen Tilford, who has made a very specific request of us. She is what is called a wildlife rehabilitator. I didn't know such a thing existed, and she's way, way nicer than I am, because what happens is you animals in our community that have been harmed and you nurse them back to health, and then they get released back into the wild. She cannot do that in Webster Groves because of our ordinance limits the keeping of wildlife in your home. In fact, it bans it. And so she is seeking a very limited exemption from that we put into the ordinance, because she is licensed by the state of Missouri. They inspect her annually and then they renew the license annually. So she is really thoroughly regulated. Also, the Department of Natural Resources, or no, it's conservation, gives a very limited number of these. So it's not as if we're going to become populated with wildlife rehabilitators. So I am just kind of put on our schedule consideration of this exemption. And I think because it's such a narrow exemption, we could even have Neil draft something that we just go ahead and consider rather than having a big work discussion of it. And so I'd ask for you to think about that as well.
You know, I had a question about that maybe Neil can answer regarding preemption. And like, I mean, if the state gives her a license, are we allowed to say, hey, that license is invalid in this city?
We are, only because it doesn't give them a license to do it wherever. It just says, if you're going to do it, here's how you do it. So yes, we can limit it, but we can also change our ordinance easily to accommodate it. So again, we just have to plug in the limitations that are found in the Code of State Regulations. It's a very obscure area, but Laura forwarded on a letter to Marie, who forwarded it on to me. So I don't think that the ordinances as they exist preempt this issue. I think all it does is basically say, if you're going to do it, here's how you do it. We can then take that and insert it into our existing ordinances and make it work.
And
She
David,
cannot get a
Yeah.
state or a state
Right.
license without permission from us. That's a prerequisite, which is what's holding her up right now.
Yeah, it's a strange, and again, it's not a statute, David. It's a state regulation. So again, it was hard to find, I might add. So.
Yeah, so the only other thing I would mention is the only reason she has this available to her right now is somebody retired. That's how rare these are. You have to wait till it opens up and then you maybe assignment. So she's trying to keep the state from moving on to somebody else so that we can accommodate her or tell her we're not going to, which is also why I would like us to just go ahead and move forward if we possibly can.
Well, we'll get some idea from the rest of the council members as we go around our meeting issues and updates. So, Pam?
I have no issues or updates, but I did just want to comment on the last discussion, and then I'm just wondering, is there a size limitation with these animals and predator versus prey types?
They're 5 pounds. I can tell you that it's under 5 pounds that she deals with them. I don't know what kind of
Okay.
a rule that is, but
And I think maybe one thing, I asked her directly, I said, if I live next door to you, could I tell that you do this work in your house? And the answer was no.
it's basically babies.
No grizzlies, no pumas.
No. Okay, David Franklin, you're next.
I got nothing, Mayor.
Okay, Emerson? Or no, Sarah. Sorry, Sarah, I'm out of alphabet here.
No worries. No updates here.
Okay, Emerson?
I have no updates, Mayor, but I am in support of trying to move forward with the conversation that Laura led to see what we can do to accommodate the resident.
Good. All right, and I've been involved in a number of discussions about other things that we will be talking about as time goes on and even later this evening. But I too spent some time talking to Colleen Tilford, and I think I would support something that we could do fairly quickly to get her this rehab license that I think is a good thing. So is there anybody on council who would be opposed to that? Okay, then Neil, let's figure out how to get that going. And Laura, thank you for your good coverage of that. Appreciate it.
Will do.
Also, Laura and Emerson and David and I have been working on the business boards and commissions piece, and we sent you our first report today. So we'll be back with additional information on that. It's been good discussion. Let's go on to our topics. The National Restaurant Association call to action. I think Pam brought this up. She wanted to talk about whether or not there were some things that we could do to help our businesses out. And so Pam, I'm going to give you the floor here.
Yes, I know we've received a couple of us have received this letter from a restaurant owner here in Webster, and it's essentially kind of a call to action from the governing or the certified body of national restaurants, and it had a very specific list of items on the federal, state, and local level. And so I wanted us to talk about some of those that we could consider on the local level. I did speak with Marie and Mara just briefly, just to kind of get Mara's take on what we are doing already and what we could possibly do a little bit more. I can go ahead and kind of get started. Maybe Mara can insert any other comments, but essentially, there's a lot we're already doing. Things like expanding to-go liquor permanently is something that would be occurring on the state level, as I understand it right now. For the pandemic, that is expiring on March 31st. So we would be waiting for that. Outdoor dining, increasing area for outdoor dining, and maybe streamlining the process for getting approval on that. Mara has mentioned that they are doing that already. Keeping in mind that it has to be safe for fire exits and ADA accessibility. And then the other couple items would be providing tax relief and rebates on business licenses and that sort of thing. And if you all feel like that is something we could do, I know there was specific requests for property tax relief for restaurants, maybe just for a given period of time, as well as some other things that are outlined in that letter.
Mara, do you want to comment?
I think Pam covered most everything. We did last year and this year have waived fees for sidewalk dining. We've allowed it to be expanded. We've been looking at some other creative ways for outdoor dining, and then other businesses, we've been just trying to work with them. I mean, I don't think we're like a lot of other communities. We actually are currently looking at 5 new restaurants. So people are still keeping busy. We didn't lose very many major businesses during the pandemic, which was wonderful. And I'm glad to say, our community has been supporting them. So I think the only thing with some of the other tax relief is it is actually surprising, but there's a certain amount that if we give relief, it doesn't go to the business district. So some of that additional money gets reused for advertising for them and doing other things for their districts. So I'm not so sure how much we'd want to give back or take back. I think we'd have to kind of see what they thought.
Okay. And as we have additional revenue from some place or the other, we can look at some different programs here. I think if we can hang on to this for a little bit, see what happens with the use tax, and also look at our retail shops too. Having visited with quite a few today, they're down. One person said, I had to get rid of all my staff. I'm the only one in here now. So it's not only the restaurants. I think it's a lot of our small businesses are really hurting now. And so if it would be all right, I think if we get some additional funding, then we can come back and have that discussion. What would you all? So that's only my thought.
Jerry, I would absolutely agree with that, in part because this letter came before the last round of relief passed, and that included a big chunk for restaurants. And that doesn't mean that our restaurants don't deserve help from us directly, but it also, whatever we do, we ought to do in conjunction with what aid they get from the state level, from the federal level as well. Because federal programs may leave people out that we need to fill in the gaps for, or we may identify particular needs within that landscape. And I don't think we know what that landscape looks like fully.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, is that stimulus money has just been passed and we're still uncertain of the rules, regulations, who gets what, et cetera. So, and even as I heard last week at a meeting, that the state of Missouri may not even accept the funding.
Well,
So-
and I was going to ask, is there any indication, like, I know that Sam Page and Corey Bush just had a press conference and they $100 million is coming to the city of St. Louis. How much is coming to the county? And is there any indication of what will be funneled down to each individual municipality with this last round of stimulus?
There are some estimates that are there, and when we get some certainty, we'll certainly share those with you.
I think it's a really good idea. I think this is really encouraging, but the only thing that I would say is this should be done in conjunction with the school district. And I don't think that we necessarily can't go it alone, but I definitely think that if we're going to give tax relief, we should be requesting and seeing what the school district can do as well in this process. Because I mean, I think to be fair to all our taxpayers, the majority of their taxes go to the school district. So I think that the school district should be involved in this process and make a determination as well, whether they can afford any relief to whether it's an individual taxpayer or a business.
And I think that's what we need to wait just a little bit to see whether any of the stimulus money is going the way of the schools and whether there's something that we can do in conjunction with them. So if that's okay, can we hang on to this, Pam, for another?
Yeah, no, I was going to say
meeting or two?
thank you for the time and the attention to this. I think it's just important for us to respond when we are approached about efforts such as this one. So I appreciate you all listening.
Thank you. Let's see, where are we now? To go back. Oh, budget updates, next agenda item. And that is Ms. Joanne.
Hi there. Hi, Mayor, City Council, members of the public. I have a fun little budget update. So let me share my screen. I'm not sure. There you go. So today I'm going to speak with you about 5 funds. We still have 3 funds that I haven't talked about, and I probably will not discuss those with you until we do the new budget. And those would happen to be the 3 business districts, Old Orchard, Old Webster, and Crossroads. And since those are budgeted by those separate business districts and Mara oversees those, there's less, there aren't as many changes that the city council makes to those. It's usually just you take a peek at them and then approve them. But these, you definitely have a lot of control and interaction with. So the first one that I want to talk to you about is the pension tax fund. It's also known as the police and fire pension fund. Following that, I will speak with you about the public safety sales tax fund, which is also known as Prop P. The third one is the sewer lateral fund. The fourth one is the fire station number 2 fund, which is a new fund. And then the general obligation debt service fund. So the pension tax fund pays for the city's pension costs for participation in Missouri loggers. And so 100% of city costs for this are paid from this fund. A smaller portion of the city costs for police and fire, I'm sorry, I missed that piece. 100% of the city costs for police and fire are paid from this fund, but a smaller portion of this city costs are paid from police and fire pension. In the past, prior to the approval in April 2017, that's when the voters approved Proposition R, and that was to allow the pension plans, both for uniformed and non-uniformed, to be increased with loggers. And voters approved that by, I believe it was like 80% or something like that. It was rather incredible. So that Proposition R was an 8% property tax increase to fund the higher benefit formula, but we haven't had to do that. We haven't had to increase it to that level at all. But one of the interesting things is that, just of note, neither none of the uniformed staff pay into Social Security. So if you look at the benefit percentage that they receive versus non-uniform, that is the reason. They don't pay into Social Security, so they're allowed the higher benefit formula with loggers. And of course, because they don't pay into Social Security, neither does the city. So it saves the city that 6% that we can invest into the loggers plan. Another piece that's helpful to know is that with our pension plan, all Webster Groves pension participants contribute 4% of their pay to loggers. So the employees contribute as well as the city of Webster Groves. A lot of plans that are done with loggers by municipalities do not require an employee contribution at all. The city funds it all. So I think this is important because the employees do have buy-in, even though they may not want to pay the 4%, they do have the buy-in, and this gives them, I think, a higher level of attention to the program. So anyway, the fund balance that as of July 1st was a little over $2 million. The projected revenues minus the expenditures give us an estimated fund balance of about $2 million again at the end of the current fiscal year. So if you take a peek at this, you can see that we've been around the same level for fund balance, revenues, and expenditures since 2018. One other item I'd like to note before I go to the next slide is every employee that I know of, when we decided to convert to loggers, 99% of the employees voted for the conversion. We allowed them to actually give their opinion as to whether they wanted to contribute or to participate, transition to loggers from a 401 plan. And we have gotten employees from other cities because we have the loggers plan here. I will tell you though that the loggers plan does not make anybody rich. As a matter of fact, the average annual pension benefit for a Webster Groves retiree is $36,700. So the next slide is the public safety sales tax fund. This one was passed in St. Louis County, April of 2017. And in this one, it's a unique one because we receive the revenue into this particular fund, but then we distribute most of the money back out as transfers out. Most years it covers the salary increases and benefit increases for our public safety employees, police and fire. We have also used it though to pay for specialized training, certain things like portable radios, firefighter protective gear, body camera warranties, Streetwise CAD, and other items such as this. So you can see that the fund balance, this is the actual fund balance, the audited fund balance of $954,000 as of July 1st, 2020. And then we received revenues, or we believe we'll receive about that amount of revenue this current fiscal year, minus the transfers out for the various expenditures, and the fund balance will then be down to about $479,000. So this line chart depicts how that goes, and it's all over the place. But you can see that 2018 was the first year that we received the money. We didn't receive it right at the beginning of the fiscal year. I believe that was because when, after it was approved, the individual at St. Louis County didn't submit the information to the state of Missouri in a timely manner. And so it pushed off the collection of that sales tax by a longer time frame than typical, because usually it's incorporated within the next quarter. The next one is the sewer lateral fund. So some of you may recall a few years ago, we had an issue with funding here. So for many years, we would charge $28 a year, and this is part of the property tax bill that everybody gets. But we realized that we couldn't afford it with just the $28 a year. It seemed like so many people were having, when they were selling their homes, they were needing sewer lateral repairs done before the purchase of their homes took place. And so we had some funding challenges, and for a few years, we were actually transferring money, loaning money to the sewer lateral fund from the general fund. And we so far have done that in a total of $180,000. But I'm trying to remember what year this was. I believe it was April. Yes, it was April 2016. The voters approved Proposition L. And so then we were allowed to change this to the maximum of $50 per year. And so for the past few years, that's what we've been collecting. We also changed the benefit formula. So it used to be that it was funded 80%, 20% with no cap on the cost of the repair. So the city would pay 80% of the cost. The Webster Groves resident would pay 20%. However, around this time, City Council approved a policy change. And so we reduced the funding to 70%, 30%, and then we also put a cap on it. So the cap is $3,500 on the repair if it's in the resident yard, but if it goes all the way to the street, then it's a cap of $8,000. As of July of 2020, the city no longer has a deficit, but of course, for the sewer lateral fund, but unfortunately it still owes the $180,000. But now we're projecting that by the end of June of 2021, we should actually have $133,000 so we can start paying back the general fund. And for me, this is exciting news because it looks like we're getting back in the right direction with this particular fund. And here's a depiction of the way it was and now the way it is. So the next one, yes.
How will you reimburse the general fund, like in small increments, all at once? What's the balance?
My goal at the end of the year is to do it by about $50,000 the first year, so that if we're around $82,000 to $100,000, then do $50,000. I'm not in a rush though, because the general fund is healthy. And I don't want to do the whole amount because otherwise I'm not sure what the next year is going to bring. Hopefully it'll be lower costs and things like that, but I'm not certain. But I'm thinking $50,000 would be a reasonable amount.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So this slide is for our fire station number 2. So this is a new fund starting in 2020. And this one was approved by Proposition F was approved by our voters. It was for almost $5 million or about $5 million of general obligation debt. We ended up getting almost 5 million, but we did 4,995,000 because the next 5,000 costed a lot more money, which was quite interesting. So for this, it's general obligation debt, which I mentioned before. So property taxes are used to fund this type of debt. And it is the safest type of debt to go into. So sometimes cities will, because they don't necessarily want to do general obligation debt, they'll do something called certificates of participation. And we have done that before, but that type of debt is more expensive because you don't have a certain property tax or other type of tax that's specifically dedicated to that. So you're just going to stream or put it in the same budget as your other expenditures. But with the general obligation debt service, you have a specific fund and you have a specific property tax that just pays for that. And we also, because we use, we have to use Moody's or another credit reporting agency to evaluate our debt in order to sell the general obligation bonds, and we have an AA1, which is the second highest. The highest, of course, is a AAA. And so it saves us a lot of money as well when we're issuing debt. So this is what our fund balance was as of July 1st. And then we believe we'll just have about 10,000 in revenues, which is just interest, and then minus those expenditures. And then our estimated fund balance is about $82,000. Now, this is not the information that I'm using the old projected information from the prior year budget and the old estimated number. So it doesn't show that transfer that you approved last month for us, or 2 months ago, I believe it was, for us to use for the owner's representative that navigate that firm. So when you see the next budget numbers, it will all be in there and inclusive of that number, just so you know that. So this is what the Fire Station 2 fund looks like. To the 2020, I have, if you've noticed, and I hope this isn't confusing, but I wanted you to see both the 2020 estimated amount, which was in last year's budget, and then the 2020 actual amount is from our audit. So where we ended up actually being. And in most cases, these numbers are pretty close. You'll notice that in 2021, this should be pretty much closed out by then because it's just a very short-term project. And then we'll close out the fund. And then finally, the general obligation debt fund. This fund is the one who pays for all of the general obligation debt issues. So we put all of the money that we get from the property tax for the debt issue that was done in 2011, which was for the street improvements. And then this last one, which was done for Firehouse 2. You'll notice that the fund balance here is $586,000. It used to be much higher, but we did what's called a defeasance, or we paid off debt, pretty is the basic terms. And we paid off 1.5 years of the 2011 debt. So instead of it being finally over in 2025, it's actually over in the first part of 2024. And so the revenues and expenditures are pretty much net out to the same amount for the current fiscal year. And again, this is what it looks like. And as you can see in the 2018, it was a much larger number. And then we decided that we wanted to pay off our debt early. And so we did so. And now the numbers are much lower. But again, we owe less in debt by $1.75 million. So I wanted to just, and I'm probably running out of time, but I wanted to mention one thing really quickly, and that has to do with something that we don't have a fund for anymore, and that is the shops at Old Webster tax increment financing. And I just wanted to remind you, if you may have not remembered this, or this was probably not before most of your times, but in March 2018, we paid off the TIF debt that we had over by the Novus building, et cetera. And that was great because we paid it off 3 years early, and that provided us about $40,000 more in property taxes, and then a smaller amount in sales taxes and gross receipts taxes. I thought that was just very interesting to know. And then I didn't provide these, but I just provided 2 more slides just in case we had time, but I don't think we do. And I'm here if anybody has any questions.
Great. All right. Does anyone have a question for Joanne? No. All right, Joanne, thank you very much. Very thorough and lots of good information. We have so many funds to look at and understand, and thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
The last item, we still have about 5 minutes, and it's okay because if somebody comes on for the regular meeting, they'll learn something from Proposition 1. This is the Proposition 1 use tax discussion, and I think that's going to Marie and Joanne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Joanne. That was a great presentation. I think you had the slide set to pull up. So Mayor, as you know, we've gotten lots of questions about Prop 1, and that is fair enough. Prop 1 is a little difficult to understand. And so we've done lots of the FAQs and have put out a lot of information. And what we wanted to share real quickly here is this video by a local business owner of Kind Soap.
Well,
Maybe. We're keeping you in suspense.
this is supposed to be working.
And if it doesn't, that's okay. We don't have to spend a ton of time. It's only about 60 seconds. It is available on our webpage and on Facebook. And it's okay, Joanne, it's fine.
I'm sorry, it worked earlier.
Joanne, do you try hold the control button down and click on it then at the same time? Control first.
It looks like it's opening in the background somewhere.
You know
Oh,
what?
Oh, it might be opening in another screen that you have to share.
Okay, let me do this. Okay, my apologies.
fine.
It's okay.
It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting without a technology.
Oh, I feel so silly.
Mm.
I thought you were closer. It did look like it was doing something.
Now,
Okay, well, why don't you just go down to the slides, and for our viewers who are watching or others that haven't, it's a neat video from a local business owner's perspective about how Prop 1 and the use tax could be beneficial. So again, we appreciate hearing different voices other than just perhaps city perspective, and would certainly invite any council members if there's any, I know you all are getting questions as well or any additional commentary. I certainly won't read all of these to you or to those viewing, but just again wanted to point out really what the use tax does. And so it of course is levied on the purchase of items from out-of-state vendors, which is the most important piece, and those out-of-state vendors that do not collect the local sales tax. And so the use tax is applied to those same products, but it's only for those amounts that total over $2,000 in a given year. So I think that's probably been one of the most difficult things to share. And so, just real simplistically, if somebody goes to a local shop and makes a purchase for $15, that price does not go up. It's still that price. It's the typical sales tax and nothing else is added to it. And then people have also asked how much we're going to generate. And so by our best estimates and the great work that Joanne has done and taking from other, surrounding cities around us, we estimate that there will be approximately $250,000 per year that would be received from the use tax to be able to put back into infrastructure type services. And with that, we'll stop and see if there's anything that council wants to add.
I was just going to add that I know we've talked about this before, but I don't know if minority is the right word, but definitely there are many, many cities throughout the state of Webster Groves that have a use tax, including some of those in the reddest parts of the state. So we would definitely not be unusual to adopt something like this.
That's correct. Thank you. There's actually several other cities around us on the ballot this time around, playing catch up because there are many, over 200 that have already adopted one. So, Mayor, I think unless there's further discussion, that is all we had on this piece. And apologies, the video didn't work. It did work earlier.
Marie, I would like just one question that I have gotten from several people is how, what's the process for us collecting it? Because people don't really understand that self-reporting part particularly well. So I don't know if Joanne or you or somebody who can explain that better than I can might give that a shot.
An excellent question. Actually, Joanne, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
So there is a process that individuals will have to do, fill out a form through the Department of Revenue. And the whole self-reporting thing is because there's not a mechanism for tracking. It really truly is a voluntary mechanism. The portion that's truly the required piece is that of the businesses, the out-of-state businesses to pay the use tax. And there is a process in place for that with the Department of Revenue, but the other piece, it's not very clear. And that's why the process with Wayfair clears things up tremendously if we ever got to that point. But we need to start with the use tax first.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Are there any other questions? Okay, get those yard signs out. So we need them out there. All right. Finally, we have a couple of board and commission things to deal with. We have a vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Commission, and we have 4 people who have applied. I quite frankly would like to know who currently is on the board so that we could be more geographically diverse, or we can be diverse in gender. But I don't know currently who's on the Parks and Recreation Commission. I think it might be worth it for us to wait until the next meeting until we have sort of an idea of what hole we might want to fill. Unless Sarah knows. Sarah, you're our liaison.
I mean, I can tell you kind of demographically what we have, and we're not super diverse. But geographically, I'm not sure. I know generally kind of where some of the members live, but not all of them. So it's something we can discuss at our next
Okay,
meeting.
if that's okay.
Like what gaps they think we need to fill maybe would be helpful. So.
Yeah, because I think that's always useful, especially with Parks and Recreation, to have a more diverse group. And if that's okay with you, we can put that off. But we have others who want to be reappointed. Jenny Starkey would like to be reappointed to the Business Development Commission. All in favor, raise your thumb. Okay, good enough. In the Old Orchard Special Business District, we have Holland Salzman, who owns the Novel Neighbor, has already served 2 terms, but we don't have anybody else interested. And so can we reappoint her? She'd like to be reappointed. Same thing goes with Angel Venegoni, who is with the Webster Groves Animal Hospital, a good member of that commission. Same thing, 2 terms. Can we reappoint her? All right, and then Stephen Zielinski has served 1 term. Can we reappoint Stephen Zielinski? All right, and then finally, Elizabeth, is it Shapey or Shapey? Who would like to be, she served 1 year on the Sustainability Commission and would like to be considered for reappointment. Good. All right, then we're all set with that, and we can, does anybody need a 1-minute break before we go? Yes, I'm seeing a few heads. Okay, because we've been here now for a while. So if we can regroup in about 3 minutes, that would be great.
I forgot how hard it was to adjust to daylight savings time.
Oh, it's terrible in the morning, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's so dark in the morning. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's been dreary and
It's nice to have extra daylight at night, but
the body's just not ready to get up at
yeah, exactly.
5:30.
I gotta say, I'm just relieved not to have little kids to do it anymore because it seemed like it took forever for them to adjust.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you didn't have a break with 3 the same age.
We didn't know any better. It was fine.
I've had similar experiences with dogs, so the kids and the dogs both have a hard time doing it.
It's actually a better thing for the cats. They're not waking me up at 5 a.m. for food. It's now 6 a.m. So they're not waking me up as early.
It's a
Bonus.
normal alarm clock.
You just need to leave out a bowl of dry food, Mara.
They're all on a diet. The vet won't let me feed them that way anymore.
Oh, geez. Oh. All right, who are we missing? We're missing Ms. Marie. We have Miss Katie with us. And as soon as Marie returns, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. There she is. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and call this 7:30 City Council meeting to order. And the usual, if you've submitted remarks of visitors before 4 p.m., it will be read into the record. After that, you may raise your hand if you care to speak as an attendee. And we'll start with the roll call.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Welsh,
Here.
Councilmember Arnold,
Here.
Councilmember Bliss,
Here.
Councilmember Franklin,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Alexander,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
All right, our first agenda item is remarks of visitors. And Katie, what do we have?
Yes, we have 2 remarks of visitors, and then we will look for any hands up. Thank you.
All right. Our first remarks of visitors is from Tim Keeney, and it was received on the 12th. Greetings, council members. I heard the discussion at the recent council meeting regarding what to do with money collected from the Wayfair tax so ardently sought by the city. Ideas including forming a low-income housing task force to decide how to allocate the tax money, the city purchasing homes to give to people, giving money to people for home repairs, and giving money as a utility tax rebate. What board or committee would be in charge of doling out the bucks? How do I qualify? Then I received the city's flyer in the mail supporting the Wayfair tax. Imagine my surprise when the bullet points only included provides needed revenue and the usual desire to level the playing field for local businesses and a minimal impact to residents. Nothing about taking money from some Webster Groves residents to give to others the council deems more deserving. A review of the city charter suggests the city has the authority to spend tax money on public improvements and police, fire, etc. I'm left questioning whether the city has the authority to spend tax money on a policy of socialist redistribution of wealth, but at least have the courage to own it in the propaganda sent out to support it. Respectfully submitted, Tim Keeney.
Can we just correct that it's not a Wayfair tax?
And then our next one is from Dave Buck, and that was received on the 15th. To our mayor, city council, and city staff. I heard a news broadcast on public radio this past weekend that Webster Groves will be receiving $4.2 million in stimulus funds from America's Rescue Plan. How should the city allocate these funds? As food for thought, here's a few possible options, not in order of priority. Number 1, jumpstart the design process on the new Aqua Center, hire a top-notch design firm and gather ideas from other innovative community pools around the country and from our residents. My own wish is for a design where you can swim year-round. 2, help address Webster Grove's affordable housing crisis by funding proven, effective solutions that will end the grip of gentrification and the loss of North Webster's Black population. Such solutions include community land trust homes, multifamily homes, tiny homes, etc., and home repair assistance. 3, implement a new beat cop strategy and hire new police officers who patrol assigned neighborhood and business district beats on foot, where they are visible and can better build trust and relationships with our community. 4, initiate the full-scale development designed to transform the Ozark Theater into the Webster Groves Performing Arts Center in our City of the Arts. 5, join forces and collaborate with the Webster Grove School District, area church preschools, and Webster Rock Hill Ministries to find a way to end the city's greatest racial inequity by offering universal preschool for our lower income kids and families to effectively close the 20-year-old academic achievement gap that has negatively impacted the lives and futures of over 7,800 Black students in our community. 6, add all funds to the general fund reserve as further protection against an unexpected financial downturn, such as if COVID seriously spikes again and continues for some time to come. Just a thought, set your 2021-22 council goals and let them guide your decisions. I know exactly where my head is. Do you? Have fun. Peace, Dave. And then, do we have any hands up to speak? I don't see any. Another second. Nope.
Okay, if there's nothing there, then I'm going to turn the remarks of visitors over to Neil Bruntrager, our city attorney.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor. There are a number of things that I wanted to talk to because in listening, of course, to the presentation by Joanne Jadali and the information that was given there, and in reading the information that's out there, you as a council have a duty, of course, to inform your constituents as to the facts regarding things like the use tax. And your duty is to educate, and you've done that. So rather than make some sort of statement that this is somehow propaganda, these are facts. This is not a situation where these are opinions, these are facts. And according to the old phrase, everyone has a right to their opinion, but nobody has a right to their own set of facts. There is simply a set of facts, and that's what this was designed to do. I've been given a lot of correspondence recently that has gone out regarding this use tax, and I think it's important to correct some of the misinformation that is out there. And again, we shouldn't be distracted by the noise of misinformation. It's just too easy to do things like go on the internet and find out the answers to these things. But I've addressed a number of these issues, and I want to share them with you and, of course, with the attendees. One of the allegations that is out there is that we are employing 2 lobbying organizations to influence lawmakers in Jefferson City. And those 2 those 2 lobbying organizations are the Municipal League of St. Louis and the Missouri Municipal League. We are members of both of those organizations. They are designed to do so much more than just lobbying, although they do certainly have a lobbying aspect to what they do. We pay them as members, and we share research, we share networking. There's a variety of things both at both the state and local level that they do for us. We haven't engaged them for the purposes of this use tax, and any suggestion that we have is simply untrue. There's also been a suggestion that we have spent $10,000 to $15,000 in order to get this on the April agenda versus waiting till November. In furtherance of that, I contacted the Board of Election Commissioners and I said, which is cheaper, an April election or a November election? Now, we call the April election the municipal election. It is designed for just this sort of thing. When I talked to the Board of Election Commissioners, they gave me some very interesting information, and perhaps the most useful form of this information is to understand a cost per voter. And what we do, and you all know this, but we want to make sure that the public knows this. When we pay election costs, it's based upon our percentage share of things that are on the ballot and our percentage share of voters. So the cost per voter is a relevant number for us. In April of 20, okay, which is the most recent election prior to obviously this last presidential election, and they don't have those numbers for us, okay? But in April of 20, the cost per voter was 75 cents. In November of 19, so the next election immediately preceding that, the cost per voter was $1.96 per voter. In April of 19, it was 49 cents a voter. In November of 19, it was $1.07. In April of 18, it was 96 cents. In November of 17, it was $1.57. In April of 17, it was 56 cents. In November of 16, it was $1.15. And in April of 16, it was 34 cents. The April elections are far and away less expensive than the November election. In addition, this idea that somehow we spent $10,000 or $15,000 more, well, we don't pay election costs until the elections have actually been held. So again, this $10,000 or $15,000 you would have had to have appropriated, and it would be in our minutes. So again, this representation that somehow we paid more is false on all of these levels. And it's important that you know this, and this is public information. Anyone can get this information. In addition to that, we've got folk that are saying somehow or another that there's only 23 states in the nation that actually have this use tax. In fact, 45 states have sales tax. Of the 45 states, only 2 of them don't have an associated use tax. Missouri is one of those 2. So again, there's misinformation out there that says only 23 states collect this and 27 don't. That's simply false. 45 states have sales tax, and of those, only 2 don't have a use tax. Now, this is the important thing to us regarding the fact that Missouri doesn't. Missouri is now trying to get that, and there are bills that are pending before the legislature right now that would impose this wayfare tax. If it does impose a wayfare tax, and we don't agree and we don't pass a use tax, then Missouri is going to be collecting tax dollars for sales, that internet sales that arise out of Webster Groves that we won't get our percentage of. We won't get our tax on. So again, it makes sense for us to pass the use tax that we're talking about in light of the fact that the state of Missouri is trying to pass the wayfare tax. So on April the 6th, it's important that people go forward with this information, and it's important that you look past the misinformation. Everything that's being done is being done with the purpose to educate. Everything that's being done is being done with the purpose of making sure that you understand what it is you're voting upon. Again, this information is out there. It's important that you understand how easy it is to check on these things. And in many ways, it's just a function of math. The use tax is 1.5 cents, 1.5 cents. Simple math. So again, it's important to understand how these things all tie together. I think in light of what Joanne had told us, I think this information is useful. But again, the misinformation is a concern, and I'd ask you to be aware of this information so that if people are asking you, you know how to answer these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. All right, we're going to move on. There's nothing under under number 3, new business, bill number 9144. So I'm going to ask David Franklin, could you call for the reading of the first and second reading?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the first and second reading of bill number 9144.
Second.
Bill 9144, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, amending Chapter 4, Boards and Commissions, Article 7, Arts Commission, Section 4.363, Composition of the Arts Commission and matters related thereto.
Are there any questions or issues? If not, let's have that second reading.
Bill 9144, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Webster Groves, Missouri, amending Chapter 4, Boards and Commissions, Article 7, Arts Commission, Section 4.363, Composition of the Arts Commission and matters related thereto.
Good. Does anyone care to remove anything from the consent agenda? If not, Sarah.
Mayor, I don't want to remove anything, but I do have a question of an item on the consent agenda.
Please.
I guess I have to ask Marie, on the consent agenda about the purchase of the new air units for the rec center. Will those units be in compliance with the ventilation requirements of the CDC due to COVID?
So yes-ish. Thank you. Thank you for the question. And I asked Scott earlier, and he has provided a response. And so I'm going to look at my cheat sheet. It's an incredible question considering the times we are in. But what he shared is that per the CDC, the HVAC is just one layer of our multiple mitigation strategy. And so there are several layers that they need to do. And so the system will have better controls, allowing more options, and it will certainly have adequate airflow and turnover rates, which I think is what you're getting at, with the ability to bring in outside air depending on favorable weather conditions. However, it by itself does not provide a filtration system. So it is one large component.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you. Impressive answer. So anything else anyone care to remove anything else? If not, Sarah, would you call for the approval of the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander. Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh.
Yes. All right. Consent agenda has passed. Appointments to boards and commissions. We have made a few tonight. We have reappointed Jenny Starkey to the Business Development Commission, reappointed Holland Saltzman, Angel Venagoni, and Steve Zielinski to the Old Orchard Taxing District, and reappointed Elizabeth Shop to the Sustainability Commission. And with that, I need a motion to go into executive closed session.
I think that's my cue.
Yes.
And so we're at 1, 3, and 4, I believe. Okay, yes, Mayor, I would like to call for an executive closed session regarding number 1, attorney-client privilege communications, Missouri Statute 610.021, open paren 1, close paren. Number 2, skipping number 2. Number 3, personnel, Missouri Statute 610.021, open paren 3, close paren. Number 4, negotiated contract, Missouri Statute 610.021, open paren 12, close paren.
Second.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
All right, so we will close this down, and I believe, Katie, we used the same Zoom connection again, right?
That's
That we
correct,
used
Mayor.
For the previous meeting, okay.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
this particular meeting is adjourned, not adjourned. This meeting is closed until we go into closed session.